So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We have the wonderful Alex Russell-Stoneham with us, who most of you will know, and if you don't, you will do by after tonight. And she has an amazing presentation for us. And she was just explaining to people how she came to be with the Tamar Dowsers. And before we start though, we like to bless the space. So I'm going to ask Ali Denham to be our luminous being for tonight.
Kindly luminous beings, guardians of this Zoom space, we're here in love and peace, and thank you for your hospitality, blessings and protection, including protections for all communications and associated technology. And so let it be.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. Ali will open, and Ali hopefully will stay long enough to close at the end. Thank you, sweetheart. So, Alex, where have you disappeared to?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here. Sorry. Alex is with the Tamar Dowsers. Would you like to mention to everyone else what you said very briefly earlier on?
Yes. Hi. Thank you for coming this evening. It's lovely to see you. And yes, I'm a co-chair with Stuart Dow of the lovely Tamar Dowsers down in Cornwall and bordering Devon. And it's lovely to see Nigel Twin on the call. Thank you, Nigel, for joining. And we've inherited a lot of wonderful history, exploration, articles. So if you feel like Googling Tamar Dowsers, there's so many newsletters and stories about the amazing landscape in and around the southwest of England. And we collaborate closely with Devon and Somerset Dowsers. And it's a lovely place to be, and we'd welcome you anytime. We love the group, and it's very mellow and laid back and very interesting as well. I'm also a holistic coach and therapist, and the work I do, I help people through creative and nurturing and supportive ways of working discover the truth and the magic inside of who they truly are. And it's a beautiful process to do. So this talk this evening shares a deep love and reverence that I have for earth energies in particular. I've been connected with them for many, many moons. And I hope you enjoy the story. And I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully people can see that on the screen. Does that show okay?
I can see it. Can everyone else see it okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, so the talk this evening is about labyrinths and dragons. And it's a story of creative alchemy. And alchemy is a somewhat magical yet mysterious term. And this talk shows how it's so connected with earth energies, in particular with labyrinths and dragons. And the exploration that I've been on has been a fascinating journey, an odyssey, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So a very famous alchemical hero, if you like, Hermes Trismegistus, has uttered some magical words: as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Whenever I say those words, it really grounds me and it connects me with the mysteries, the expansive nature of the universe and the expansive nature of our inner verse. So we've all been on a journey through life, and this is an illustration of a bit like your storybook of your own life. If you were to write it, your own hero's journey, your own quest in life, what's been the exciting or the challenging or the mysterious sort of twists and turns in your path on the road of your own personal development. And how did you get to here? And it's a wonderful thing to think about, the magical breadcrumb trail that we notice through life when we look back and we see those connections. And I guess the story connected with Labyrinths and Dragons started when I was very young, and I had an enduring and very committed belief in fairies. I felt that they were there, and I really loved looking at the fairy picture books, reading any fairy stories. I never saw any, but I remember going on picnics in the woods with my family and just looking at the trees, going by in the car, and just wondering, are there any fairies in there? And even though when you grow up, you get told things like, oh, you know, Father Christmas, rubbish, fairies, nonsense, I always cherished that belief, and I kind of held on to it as a sort of a treasured magical belief. And in Cornwall, when I was 12 years old, there was a really mystical experience. I went on a family friend's land, as we have family in Cornwall, and it was a Fugou on the land. So a Fugou, in case you haven't come across one, they seem to be particular to Cornwall, and they appear to a 12-year-old's eyes like a burial chamber, like a long barrow. And there are chambers off the side for the one I went in. So I remember getting a sense in this space that it felt like a liminal space. It felt ancient and mysterious, and it felt powerful and dark, and like, what are in these rooms? What did people do here? How did they use this space? It's not like anything I've ever seen. And there was a pentagram with some seats on the earth around the Fugou, just outside. And so I saw my first sort of markings in the earth of the 5-pointed star, and wondered what people were practicing here, because I hadn't seen anything like it growing up near Richmond in southwest London. It was very different to where I grew up. I also found Indiana Jones coming out around the same time. Absolutely exciting. Indiana Jones is a complete epic hero. The way he discovered ancient sites, and the things like the Holy Grail, but in particular the first film that came out with the magical treasure that he was looking after. And so with this love of Indiana Jones, this Cornish Fugou experience, it led me, not directly, but it led me along a path where I was curious and I was interested in the ancients, and what was it like to live in those ancient times. Even hearing the song Jerusalem, by William Blake, it just got me thinking, what was it like? What were our ancestors like? How did it feel to actually live with these as your everyday space? And I was lucky enough in school to just incidentally come across dowsing, age 15. So I picked up a pendulum for the first time and got a yes/no response. And yeah, it took me on a journey that led me here today, sort of quite a few years later. I became very ill when I was 19. It stopped me in my tracks. I had to go through some serious sort of medication and procedures, and it was an autoimmune condition. And it was so serious that if I didn't take my medication, I wouldn't be here today. So I was very grateful for the allopathic medical to sort of processes to support me through my journey. And I was ever so grateful for my mother, to be open to looking into homeopathy, looking into acupuncture, and it started me off on a holistic journey. And I knew how I felt after an acupuncture session where I could really notice the leaves on the trees, and I felt very connected and very grounded. And it was a really lovely, luscious sort of aligning feeling. And homeopathy, in the end, was what helped me heal to full wellness. And so I'm very, very grateful for that opening of the door to a holistic way of looking at things at such a young age, in such a sort of, important situation. So while I was unwell, I started going within. I practiced meditation. I was reading a lovely book by somebody called Barry Long, an Australian, on how to meditate. And this was long before the internet. So, you have books. And this book, I was following the steps in my home one day, and I got into a very peaceful, very still inner place. I was in, I don't know if you've meditated and you've got to that sense of no time, no space. It's called the void by some, and it feels like you're in the depths of the womb of creation almost, but you can't describe it with words either. And I was in this very deep, connected, still, powerful, amazing feeling place. And I kind of issued a challenge, which was, okay, this feels really good, but come on, show me what you've got. And throwing down that slight gauntlet, I I was sitting there in the chair in this meditative state, and every single cell in my body, starting with the bottom of the soles of my feet, they shimmered all the way up, like it was like my whole every cell shimmered in a wave up through my body and out. And it was so amazing, and it was so powerful, and I knew it was an awakening moment, and I knew there was no going back. I couldn't go back to planet normal after this, and just go about my day to day. I knew that this was showing me the full potentiality of who I truly could become, what we can do, even if I wasn't controlling those cells shimmering. It wasn't me telling the cells to do that. And I think that's similar to, or possibly the same to what people now call a Kundalini awakening. That's used quite commonly nowadays, and it certainly felt like that because it went from beneath upwards and out. So after that no looking back kind of pivot point, I ended up, after recovering from my illness, doing a fashion degree. So I love designing, I love making, I love sculpture with clothes and fabrics, and I ended up doing a fashion show at the end of my degree, which I called Geomancy. And Geomancy for me at that time was about how to be in harmony with the earth as a human being. And it was inspired by Boudica, and it was very much a strong, heroic sort of energy. After this, I discovered spirit guides. I had a team around me in my 20s. And also I was given a spiritual name when in a connected state, which was Thoth, Artemis, Isis, which led me on another, lane of exploration. In my 30s, I started channeling, and the flower of life came through as a symbol that I was shown, this needs to be used by you. So it's become my logo for my business. I use it in lots of different ways. And then I was told to make a labyrinth at the end of my garden, which I'll talk about later in a bit more detail. And that led me to dragons. So this is a little sort of story of the magical things that have happened to get me to here, which helps me to share with you how I perceived this through my life and lived experience, that everything is connected. Everything that we experience is connected. The sacred geometry connects with dowsing, with earth energy, with alchemy, mystery, and archaeology, legend, and myth. It's different ways of viewing the ultimate same connected source of consciousness. And the way I find is a really lovely way of looking at that is seeing what other interesting and interested people have been looking at to look at the connections between ourselves and the world and the cosmos. When we look at Leonardo da Vinci, he was considering, could the human body be a scale model of Earth? And he was seeing how the branching of the human blood vessels were looking to him like tributaries flowing into rivers. And he was thinking about how the expansion and contraction of breathing mirrored the ebb and flow of ocean tides. And he was interested in measurement, sacred proportions and relationships of sacred measurements, and wondering, if we look at the human body, if we look at nature, are we a miniature representation of the cosmos? And this is an example of where he was measuring branches of trees and looking at the lungs. And it's all really fascinating when you see what people have gone and looked at before. And when you look at how the cosmos is, there are many, many spirals, and the spiral of expansion. And I find this picture so very beautiful, reminding us of our connection with the cosmos, with astrology, the planets, the signs. And it really reminds me of how the universe grows as well, and how we evolve as human beings. And I look at the center of this beautiful spiral in space, and it's just so inspirational, because there's everything and nothing there. And that it's like a singularity, this single point. And you will see a connection with Labyrinths shortly to do with that. And looking at these spirals and the cup and ring marks, Triskelion, looking at how often we see spirals and the balance between the masculine and the feminine, it's fascinating to see, as well as in ancient history, in electroculture, how spirals of copper can be wound around your bamboo or a stake, and you can get cabbages the size of a human being. And Ray Bacon is an amazing person if you Google him, and we're hoping to get him for Earth Energies Zoom talk as a speaker, because he teaches and shares lots of interesting information about electroculture. And the stories are amazing about how this has been going for a long time. We're just rediscovering it, like we're remembering lots of things. And looking at spirals, this is reminding me a little bit of a shell, but the proportions again with the human body. Spirals using the golden section. This is when I've been studying golden geometry, this is a spiral leading to a 5-petal flower head, and all of these can keep on going and going because of the proportion and the magic number of phi. And this is a channeled picture of a plant, sort of spirit's energy, of how the root systems feel and how the spiral energy and how it fans out. So this is just some of my drawings, but also getting really excited with patterns and spirals and seeing how generative they are, how expansive they are. Looking again at the golden section and how we see it mirrored in nature and even in crop circles and the cosmos itself. When we're looking at spirals, they're not just two-dimensional. When you consider them as three-dimensional vortices, you then connect with the toroidal field, the torus, shaped a bit like a donut, people say, or an apple. And you can see some lovely representations here of how we and the earth has this toroidal field. It's the north and south pole. It's the energy that comes up and comes down through us, and it seems to be a common feature in the labyrinths I've been exploring as well. When you look at the patterns, even the symbol of phi turns into a torus, a toroidal field, and you can see this image here. It's got a bit of the flower of life as well as the spiral with the toroidal field. You can even see the Templar's cross coming through. Is that where they got the inspiration for the shape of the cross? So when we're looking at these amazing patterns of us, of the universe, it feels as if it's a beautiful, creative, and intelligent connection with all of us together. And the way I see the energy field is as if it's around us like a flower of life. And sometimes I'm finding that just to harmonize that shape and repair anything that feels a little bit wrinkled or a little bit dinked feels like a lovely way of working. Here are some more patterns where you can see with sacred geometry and the flower of life, it yields the fruit of life, Metatron's cube. You can see the chakra systems here, the tree of life, the Holy Grail, and again this Templar or Maltese cross. So it's really interesting. If you ever try drawing a flower of life, there are so many ways to draw it as well. You can do the classic in pencil with a compass, but if you get a pen and you follow the lines, it's a very meditative journey that you can have a silky sort of wave following wherever your pen takes you. And if you are willing to try it and just see what happens, see how it feels. Here again, expanding on the flower of life, how there are connections with yin yang, and there is the symbol of balance of the universe, everything and nothing. There's also in an old alchemical text an image of Hermes Trismegistus, and he's holding a staff with a spiral. Looking again at some of these patterns, these beautiful patterns that connect the flower of life, everything starting with a circle and a cell. Is it the right word to say blastocyst? When it starts separating, and then it becomes the toroidal field of us and the world and the cosmos. So looking at these patterns and finding this picture is something that helped us get to Cornwall. We were planning on moving to Devon, and I placed a picture, as labyrinths are very important in my life. I placed a picture of this labyrinth, which is in Rocky Valley, near Tintagel in Cornwall, and it's very connected with King Arthur and Merlin, sort of local history. And I put it in the center of a vision board for our house move, and I didn't really think about it being in Cornwall, but funnily enough, we moved to not far away from here. If you've ever walked a labyrinth, or if you like spending time in stone circles or places where there are standing stones of some kind, or sacred wells, whatever speaks to you, this just sitting on the earth in a place that feels right, that you may be called to ask permission to enter. And if you're a Dowser, that's very, normal practice, I would say. Just getting permission to sit somewhere and be still or lie on the earth, getting in tune with how the earth breathes, being at one with her. It's amazing what can happen just by sitting on a particular spot, and with a spiral, how healing it can be. I've heard stories of how magical and healing this can be. Somebody sitting on a log. This was at an older Earth Energies talk, I think, Melanie and David. There was somebody sitting on a log, which was where they doused a spiral, and they had a tricky knee, and it was better after they sat on the log for a while. I had a headache earlier today, and I very rarely get headaches. And I went and sat on a spot in my garden where there's a spiral, and it was very gently balanced out. So those of us who practice earth energy sort of dowsing or exploration, we probably have already had some connection with or direct experience of how healing the land can be. And this is some of the messaging I've been getting a lot lately. So the land can heal us. Let's co-create with our own landscape, our own magical space where we live, and connect and allow and call on it to help us, and be grateful and offer something in return, maybe a blessing or a word of thanks. So this picture in the center here is from an old alchemical text, and it indicates a labyrinth of sorts. And it says, "There is no coming to the one with one jump, and none without going about." So for those of us who like contemplating the old ways, maybe a slow lane approach is better than the fast lane. It's more human friendly, more earth friendly. This is maybe helping us remember that old wisdom of that pop a pill, everything will be fine, quick fix isn't necessarily the route where we get the most growth. So if we have a winding path, and you can see the person here, and you can see the tower up there, and there's an angelic sort of winged being glowing, trying to help this seeker, this person from this labyrinth or maze, go and reach their height, their higher path, if you like. So this concept's been around a long time. When we look at that pattern, looking at this Egyptian alchemical key, this diagram reminds me of, if the return of the spirit to the center of unity is upwards, that reminds me of the previous slide with the tower. And maybe you're in the middle here and you need help to get up there. And it also, I quite enjoyed this spiral image with the pendulum, saying the cosmic pendulum with the inhale or the exhale of the breath, the flow, and then this point, this 0 point of inertia, but also stillness. In learning how to draw and paint labyrinths, I was taught that everything starts with a circle, a bit like creation, a bit like all of sacred geometry. Everything starts with a circle, and then you draw, similar to a seed of life. You get to draw circles around the single circle, and then that's where you can start your labyrinth lanes and drawing it using sacred geometry. So I find it really beautiful and inspirational that every labyrinth starts with this. And here is where dragons came in. This is a labyrinth in Oxfordshire called the Global Retreat Centre. It's a beautiful place, and we went as Thames Valley Dowsers, and I was facilitating a labyrinth walk that day, and it's a really high vibe place. I'd recommend it if you're able to go. It's run by the Brahma Kumaris, and you can go there for free talks, and you can go and access with permission their labyrinth. So you can go to this wonderful place, and the energy is just gorgeous there. And on this day, I was given a very big feather, and this very big feather took me on a journey, because if you see a feather in your path, if you're not used to working with, let's say, messages from nature, which I wasn't particularly, it maybe took a feather that was that big to sort of get me to notice, hello. And after receiving this feather, I went to the labyrinth. I was told, go to the labyrinth, and this was the one I was told to make at the end of my garden. And this feather was very inspirational and felt very powerful. And every single day after getting this feather, I had a feather in my path, literally my direct path when I was walking the dogs. And so it was a very beautiful way of nature helping affirm that you are on the right path. Keep going, keep going. And with this feather and walking in the labyrinth, I was told this is where dragons sleep or lie. This is where they lie. This is where they sleep. This is a dragon space. And I'd never, ever come across that myself before. Let's look a bit at the energy in a labyrinth, what's going on. So the center flat line horizontally is showing you the earth. The pink dot in the middle is the labyrinth goal when you go into the middle of the goal. So we're looking at it as if it's a cross section of the earth, and as above, so below, heaven and earth. And this is pink. This pink band is a sort of an image of an energy line. So when you sight a labyrinth with your dowsing rods, you, with permission from the spirit of place and with the general custodians and guardians, elemental kingdoms, it is amazing with dowsing rods how you can find the goal and where to start building your labyrinth. And what happens within 1 to 2 days is there may be a single energy line that just is literally a straight line, and another line of water will come and cross, which creates the vortex. We call it sometimes in earth energies a blind spring. So this vortex is coming up, and there is energy being drawn down. And if you've ever created an altar with an intention in your home, the similar stuff happens on the altar as well, especially if you're using sacred geometry. You're anchoring and grounding stuff, good stuff coming down, and composting stuff you want to let go of. So it's a similar principle. So in this center, when you're standing here, having walked in the labyrinth, it is really everything and nothing. And it feels very transmuting, transformative, alchemical. You don't have many thoughts. You feel very still in this central place. And you're not quite sure what's going on, but you can kind of sense something going on. So looking at these spirals and looking at similar shapes that represent the dragon, the spiral, looking at the Ouroboros, and also the connection with Solomon's seal, there seems to be this connection, and I love this, where it's going from elementary particles through to different degrees of cells, through to humans, the biosphere, the planet, stars, the galaxy, the Ouroboros going around, and seeing these two triangles And I can imagine them a bit like in a Merkaba spinning. So if you have them both spinning, that feels a bit like how you would be in the center of a labyrinth as well, with this spinning. There's another reminder from 1440, Nicolaus of Cusa, and he drew this pyramid, he called it, or pyramis, of otherness and unity. And he created this model. Again, it just feels and reminds me of what's happening in the center of a labyrinth, where it's yin yang, it's light and dark, possibility, reality, male, female, rise and fall. And it's also just reminding me of, again, the Merkaba with the triangles and the fruit of life here in this illustration with the cosmos. And you can see so many patterns when you look. This is an old drawing of the constitution of man, and looking at the triangles and the circles and the spin. This one here is on the right, is from an old Hermetic alchemic text about the fall and rise of Adam. And Adam indicated by the letter A, and you can see these different icons, and it's been going through a lot by this stage. And there's this this is representative of Adam's soul on the terrestrial globe, and above him the sign of the Redeemer. And these two triangles, when they've completely joined together, this is meant to be one of the most meaningful signs in the entire universe, according to this text. And it's the work of rebirth and reunification with Sophia being complete. Let's look at what's going on with dragons at the cosmic level. We've got an indication here charting the calculation of the solar and lunar eclipses. And then here from Rajasthan in the 19th century, the sevenfold division of the universe as a river of space and time. And looking at this 25,000 year wave of time going through each epoch of each sign. We're just into the Aquarius sign. This is the kingdom of heaven. This is the kingdom of the world. Those patterns, as above, so below. The material, the spiritual. Dragons. This is an ancient illustration of a map using a dragon's head and tail for calculating solar and lunar eclipses. And when I was researching dragons and labyrinths, I just Googled them just out of curiosity. And I found these two books. And I quite like the images. Same patterns coming up again. It's like we're remembering, re-remembering. These are quite contemporary books. You may have noticed that magical creatures have been coming through a lot in our culture. With the kids and grandkids, unicorns have been very popular. And I've noticed dragons in the form of cuddly toys, dragons in How to Train Your Dragon, obviously Game of Thrones, and lots of other things. But looking at these patterns on this picture, just look at the colors and the patterns from hundreds of years ago. And these images, they speak to the soul, the spiral, the serpent. They cut right through the conscious mind. This is a lovely example of how life can give you signs, prods, pokes, and also inspiration just by the matter of your attention on something. So this is a picture I've got in the bottom right hand corner here, the timestamp of the photo I took of a screen. It was on my television screen very recently. I was getting ready for this talk, and it's a program on Amazon Prime about Carl Jung and alchemy. And I was finding it very enriching, and I was drawn to take a picture because even though this is serpentine, it looks like a dragon. But look at the shape. It reminded me of Ouroboros, and what's going on up here. And are those feet dragon's feet, or maybe are they griffins? What's that? Is that a griffin's head? What's going on? I was very curious. And just taking a note of that, look at the next picture that I took of my morning coffee. Hello. I thought, is that a serpent looking after an egg? What's going on? Is that what is that? And then just today, I was looking through some of my drawings from Earth Energy expeditions, and so this is a timestamp of the very next morning, and having the same kind of serpent and egg or roundness shape. And then this is Knowlton Church in Dorset, not far from Cranbourne and Wimborne Minster. And what I did was I went round with my dowsing rods, and it's a henge, and there's two beautiful yews, very liminal space at the up here, and there's lots of people tying beautiful ribbons here. It's very magical and lovely. So I asked my dowsing rods, and I got this lovely tip from Nigel Twin, actually, just ask for your kind of highest good, where a dowsing rod's going to guide you. So I was guided this way round, and then came back this way and made some marks where there was some spirals. Anyway, I just realized how similar it is to that and that. But I looked at this at the time when I drew it, and I said, well, that doesn't feel like a dragon. But I'll make a note of it anyway. And lo and behold, it feels connected, and that was last November. Looking at the dragons here and looking at the spirals of the chakra system, the staff of Caduceus, looking at the dragon here with this philosophical egg. It seems like a really important aspect of alchemy, and it's one I'm finding fascinating exploring. Here I went to Foy in Cornwall, lovely place to visit, and Game of Cones ice cream shop, and quite like the dragon head. So wherever I am, I'm just noticing more and more dragons. It just seems brilliant and bonkers and wonderful. So just this is the labyrinth where I learned a lot of this information, and I'm going to show you a map in a moment. This is the labyrinth that I was called to make in the woods. It was a lovely tree temple surrounding this. There were two trees as a doorway walking through into here, and just walking through here was really magical. And this is where I was told this is how dragons lie. And just nearby there is a green table I put for a sort of labyrinth walking sort of ceremony I hosted, where it was a fairy circle. So I brought out some of my cards and books and lights and crystals to honor this lovely energy. And here there's a picture of spring with the element wood and the emotions of anger and the yang gallbladder, or the yin aspect of liver meridians. And the reason I've got that is because I doused around the edge of the labyrinth a 5-pointed star, and at the point of each star was a spiral. So if you've been in a labyrinth, I would love to know at the end, when we may be open for questions, have you discovered any spirals or any additional energies around the labyrinth itself, because this blew me away. It really did, to find that there's more to the labyrinth, more to the sum of its parts. It's creating other aspects of healing for us. So what I noticed when I hosted walks on here is that if somebody had an imbalance in a meridian, they would feel walking, if they had a gallbladder imbalance or a liver imbalance, for example, and liver is very common because of fast Western lives, that lifestyle is very liver sort of challenging, they would feel that it was harder to move forward. Like the feet would feel heavier here, and they may stop. And it is possible to stand, sit, lie across here, whatever you want to do on a labyrinth, to benefit you and to heal you with these different meridians and aspects. So if any of you have discovered this yourself, I would just be so happy to hear this, you know, just to swap stories or discoveries. And it takes you into the yin yang here in the center. That's where everything and nothing is happening. And this is a visual sort of diagram really to show you where there are some points that you can tap, like acupressure, to help balance as well. So this is all very well known in 5-element theory. It's ancient traditional Chinese medicine, the 5 elements, the 5 seasons, and it's really lovely to explore this area. Donna Eden does a really good job, and there's loads of her videos as well and books. So this is what I found in what was a 3-circuited labyrinth, a very simple labyrinth made out of leaves. I did a facilitated walk in a 11-circuited turf labyrinth in Oxfordshire, and this is what I found, because I was curious. I went there before the walk and talk, and I found that it was possible to find not just these same 5 points, but I found 3 additional points, and I was told it was animal, vegetable, and mineral, and it felt like associating with different bodies and aspects of who we are, and those spirals could support. Now, there's a really interesting thing with the moon cycle and these spirals that I've observed, and I don't know if any other people on this call have done spiral investigations, but what I've noticed with the ones around the labyrinth is that when the moon is waxing, the spirals are going anti-clockwise, and when the moon is waning, the spirals flip and they go clockwise. So it's like there's a balance, this again, this cosmic balance of as above, so below. This is a picture of my lovely dowsing friend and colleague David Atkinson and I doing some sound healing in the labyrinth before the people walked. And I would like to add that we do a dowsing podcast together. So if you're interested, Discovering Dowsing is available on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon. And we've had some really lovely guests so far. It's quite a new podcast, so we love any listens or any feedback on that or any suggested topics. So David and I are really interested in sound, not just as a healing modality, but also sound in concert with the elementals, with nature, with the earth itself. And what I found recently is just even wearing headphones into a labyrinth and walking and just automatically choosing a playlist but making it go on a shuffle, you might find that the right song comes at the right moment for the right reasons. I've been finding this when walking labyrinths, so I'd recommend considering sound with labyrinths as well as the sacred places. Sound and singing is quite something. For this same day, this is a Thames Valley Dowsers diagram of what they found. So what they found was different to what I had found. And this really fascinated me. This is somebody called Mike Cubbage, who's a member of Thames Valley Dowsers, who's really interested in earth energies. And he did a super accurate diagram and found a total of 16 points for these spirals around this 11-circuited labyrinth. And then he connected it with the double flower of life and geomancy, because he was saying this is the only pattern that you in all of his studies, and if anyone else has something to do with 16 in the mystical arena, please share, because I'd be fascinated to hear, because this geomancy connection, it's almost like it's taking me full circle back to my fashion degree and my clothes show, because okay, I didn't know that geomancy included divination. Geomancy has the tail of the dragon, the head of the dragon. I've been using I Ching for many years, and it reminds me a lot of that kind of divination, and also Ogham, and I'm just seeing again more patterns. So I'm looking here at how geomancy works. I'm looking here at alchemy, and looking here as this is the everything and nothing here, the pure source of creation, and this is the chaos. And then you have Spiritus Mundi, and you have all these different signs and symbols representing, and then animal, vegetable, mineral. This is an alchemical chain, and it leads to the everything and nothing at the bottom as well. And then this is the structure, the progression of creation according to I Ching practice. So you have the nothingness, the chaos, the yin and yang, and then the 4 symbols, and then the 8 trigrams and the 64 hexagrams, and then everything in the world. So there is some incredible structure here that seems to complement. And interestingly, Carl Jung, on his odyssey and his journey of exploration, he was asked to write or review the edited version of the I Ching in the 1930s. And all of this and all of these patterns pointed him back to alchemy. Have you been to the sanctuary in Avebury? If anyone's sort of been there, it's not it's not near the center of where the main stone circles are in the main henge complex. It's just at the bottom of the avenue, and then near to Silbury Hill. So when you look at it from above, people have talked about the sanctuary, but it's like a quiet whisper compared to the sort of Avebury main complex, because those stones are so impressive. And what you have here are kind of concrete forms, if you like, of where things have been situated before. So I was asking Dowsing, please show me what I need to know when I went in here, and you were guided in, and then the dowsing rods took me in here, took me on a labyrinth walk round here, right into the center very quickly, then obviously guided out the other way. So then I was shown, it was almost like a labyrinth after a labyrinth. So this, you can almost see these lines here of, oh, excuse me, clicked by mistake. You can see these lines, and I've drawn it as a sort of diagram. When I've gone in, it feels very intimate, very quieting, very centering. But when you go out, because there's this double layer to it, it feels very empowering, very strengthening. And when I discovered this, I was standing at the center, looking at the sun setting on the horizon, and had a song drop into my awareness, which was Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. And I could sense that was a dragon coming in to work with me. So dragon being in the form of a bit like a spirit guide or an elemental sort of being friend. And here is a picture of a dragon that I was given by David Atkinson. It's a book by Hamish Miller, and that was just after I'd been told about dragons. This is how we lie. It's in a labyrinth. And that was a lovely, again, symbolic affirmation. So when you're walking a labyrinth, are you walking the dragon? And what does that help you with? How does that help? So in Cornwall, I'm lucky enough to have a field, and I've been guided to build a turf labyrinth here. The stone, there's a lot of beautiful white quartz. There's a stone circle up the road called Julo Stone Circle, made of quartz, white quartz. It's quite something. And so I've been guided to collect quartz with permission on my walks up the lane. And I've also brought with me from a table that had dragons on it. I disassembled it because it had these beautiful crystal onyx paving slabs that were the size of a paving slab, basically. And I was guided to use them for the center of the labyrinth. Now, when I thought about it, I was thinking, why are there two stones? And I've been guided that this labyrinth has two centers. So this is the kind of crystal that's going in the center of the labyrinth, but it has two centers. This is a video of dragons moving, and this gives us, I feel, an impression of how primordial, how powerful, how mesmerizing this energy can be. This is a sketch of the labyrinth with the entrance here, and it turns out that it's a two-centered labyrinth. So it's got 6 circuits, but then a 7th is a spiral here. This I've never seen before, a labyrinth with 2 centers. I don't know why I'm being told that, but it feels like it's almost like the dragon's tail or some, I don't know what it is yet. It's still a work in progress. And it feels like these are the dragon chakras here on the labyrinth I'm building. So if you're out and about exploring, you are interested in earth energies because you're on this call, there are many ways to connect with dragons. There are power centers, dragon earth energy lines, emperor dragon nodes. Rory Duff talks about them, hill forts and dragon nests. So if you see a little indentation on a hill fort, Douse, is that a dragon nest? Barrows, labyrinths, of course, and the elemental kingdom itself. Here are some more labyrinths. And I wonder what the connections with dragons might be. I have not explored this with that lens, but you can see the dragon lines here. This may be familiar with you, indicating the male and female dragon lines. It's said that dragons helped form the cosmos and the earth as well. This is a slide that, for me, from my outlook, explains how the gnomic kingdom is connected elementally, the fairy kingdom and the dragons. So they're primordial power, archetypal, and the 4 elements. So we look at a dragon, it can fly, it has the air element, it can breathe fire, so of course it has the fire element, it has the scales as similar to that of a fish, has the water element, its belly is on the earth, it lies in the labyrinth, it is the earth element as well. Signs in nature. So this is David, you might recognize this, David Charman. You made this lovely rodulum, you call it, don't you? It's a pendulum and a dowsing rod combined. And this is on a walk Ali and I did together, and this is in Brixham in South Devon. And I've been called by the elementals to collect some things. And this is, again, just to show signs of connectivity and creativity and alchemy. you might be able to see here a tiny little sycamore type seed, and then here it's quite hard to make up, but there's a wiggly green sort of seed pod here, just net to the left of that feather. And then there's an interesting shape here, and I figured out it was part of a sole of a shoe. I thought it was something natural, but I realized it was part of a sole of a shoe, I think. Anyway, I put them together and drew them, and I've always wanted a fairy to sort of show itself to me, and I realized when I finished drawing them together, I just laid them out and just drew them like this. I realized that for me is a fairy trying to say hello, and I can see this is the upper body and this is the head. So it's just lovely to see things when they're presented, because I don't see elementals with my seeing physical eyes. I see things with my creative inner vision. Dragons and elementals keep showing up. This is from the British Society of Dowser conference, the May symposium last year. First thing I saw when I got there was this dragon on a column in a front garden, then the lovely gnomes in the shop window, and lots of things on dragons. So I'm always keeping an eye out for these lovely, amazing, awe-inspiring beings. And this came across my path, a dragon aurora from Iceland. How beautiful and epic is that? And a very close time to that, this is what was channeled through me. The dragons, I was going on a walk and they said to me, "We are bright, illuminating your path, your shadow, your breath, working with all the elements, seen and unseen, for all life, all the beings in all the worlds. We are here to encourage the flow. We are flying and we are starting to land. Our brothers exist as the dragon energy in the earth, snaking, coiling, supporting and sometimes burning. We are the sistren of the light." There's some beautiful energy in Talland Bay, just up the road from where I live. And in the church, there are incredible carvings. So you can see here some dragon creatures being carved into the pews. This is a little tiny twig covered with lichen, but I really see the dragon here. It looks like the head to me with the ears and part of the body. This is, I was told on my walk where there's this beautiful stream, I was told this was a water dragon. So I've done my best to try and draw in the next slide the way I saw it as a dragon. And there were these massive wings, massive, that went off in this beautiful, beautiful landscape. And Helen Fox, who's part of the wonderful Tamar Dowser, said, "Well, you know that Cornwall is the dragon's head, don't you?" And I didn't. So I've ended up in the dragon's head. And I sat, when I had this headache just before this talk, I sat in the field where I'm building the labyrinth, the Dragon Star Crystal Labyrinth, and asking for the spiral energy that I've been connecting with in the field to help me with the headache. And then I took a picture of what was in the sky. It's just really beautiful how life reflects back your inner alchemy, your inner creative space. So just on my journey, how have dragons helped? They've deepened my awareness. They've helped me understand the healing potential of labyrinths in a new way, in a deeper way. And I've been discovering new labyrinths and working with the dragons in those spaces. I felt as elemental beings and coming forward into my awareness to work with me, they're incredibly protective. They're very strong and protective. So if you're working with dragons, you get less hammered, let's say, or less susceptible to energies that might not be so beneficial if you're a sensitive or open person. I felt a deeper connection with earth energies. It's just so profound and beautiful and life enhancing. It's just a new ways of seeing it. I've been given new healing modalities with my eyes moving in an almost automatic way. That's not me. Not me consciously controlling it, and my hands as well. It's like a physical version of a light language that my eyes are sort of knitting together, damage in portals, or sort of reharmonizing the flower of life pattern around. So if you are going on a labyrinth journey, if you haven't tried going on one before, this is how it may help you. So like when we're dowsing, we balance naturally both brain hemispheres. A labyrinth does the same thing. It's said that the labyrinth resembles the brain. It's like a cerebral map almost. So there is that connection there. It can help you get an answer or a way forward when you're stuck. Check your energy field if you're going with somebody or with a group. Check what your energy field is like pre and post, and just see what you find. And like I said, with the spirals and the 5-pointed star around the labyrinth that I just had a very simple raked leaf one, what else is possible? If you stand there and you are drawn to stand on a particular place, how may it help heal you? So if you are curious about this, and if this inspires you, I want to first of all give my absolute gratitude and thanks to Melanie, because Melanie sent me this picture that you might recognize in the landscape. What do you see? And it was perfectly timed because it was just at the start of the Chinese New Year with the green dragon of spring rising. And it was just perfect. And so just look closely in the landscape. I've just given some examples that I've captured that has been fun and lovely and heartwarming and life affirming for me to be presented with these images or symbols and signs from nature. You get hints, you get whispers on the wind. If you hear something in your inner voice that's calling to you, follow your own path. If you feel called to, for whatever is being offered to you. It's been dragons and labyrinths and flower of life for me, and I'm just finding it's an infinite journey of beauty and wonder and awe. Look at the sky. I just looked up at the clouds this evening before the call, but there you get shimmers, you get hints, you get wisps of what's out there. And I think and I feel that we're going to be seeing more and noticing more of these elemental and interdimensional and multidimensional beings. Just asking for a deeper connection and signs, and they will come forth. If you feel called to walk a labyrinth yourself, if you Google Labyrinth Locator, there's an online tool to help you type in your local area and you'll find your nearest labyrinths. Cannot recommend it highly enough. It's a wonderful thing. There are some books that by Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst, Sun and the Serpent, talking about the Michael and Mary lines and showing that Glastonbury map of the labyrinth there, the dance of the dragon, the green man and the dragon. So that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this odyssey, this quest, and thank you so much for joining me on it. And yeah, here we are.
Thank you, Alex. That was lovely. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for showing my picture as well. I hadn't realised you were going to show that.
Well, but for me, it just inspired me so much, Melanie. So I was really grateful. Thank you.
Can I, before we open up to questions, it's curious what you were saying about the dragons. Do you remember I said earlier I met my husband with dragons? I was conservation ranger in Kent for many, many years. in a forest, and the forest next to us, or near us, in Greenwich, was going to have an 8-lane motorway put through by the good old Department of Transport in the 90s. And I got involved with trying to save the woodlands, Oxleys. I don't know if anyone ever remembers Oxleys Wood, it was a long time ago. And the chap I met who was starting it was working for Friends of the Earth, and he called his group Dragon with no reason. He couldn't even tell you why. He just said, "Oh, I just like the name." So I thought, okay, fine. And we spent a couple of years actually doing ecological work and eco kind of terrorism things, very nice terrorism, raising money and selling the trees and things. And one night we decided, in the middle of the woods there was a big open space, and we decided to call the dragon. So there was a whole group of, we're druids, so we were doing like a ceremony. And so it was dark at night, nobody else there, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we did this ceremony. We asked the dragon to come, and then we all lay down and meditated, and we all saw it. It literally, you know, it came up and went straight up above us. And wow. We were like, did we all see that? We wonder if it was just late early in the morning, we were tired. But the weirdest thing was, I went to bed that night and I had this dream of the earth, and then out of the earth came a dragon, and they were all the continents and the land masses, and it kind of evolved from that. And it was, like you said, with the Ouroboros going around in circles, and that was early 90s. Well, wow. No, late 80s, early 90s. And it's always been a thing that, you know, we've always felt the earth was alive. But that dragon thing, just, I understand what you're saying, because it became a thing. And we even had people dressing up as dragons and raising money and everything. It was all good fun. And somebody from the BBC interviewed one of our leaders and said, "What does it mean?" And we were all like, "Oh God, we don't know what it means." And he said, out of the blue, it said, "Don't ruin anything green or natural," which is dragon. And he said, "I don't even know where that came from. It was if somebody else." And we said, "God, that was clever." He said, "I don't know where that came from at all." It just,
I've got goosebumps.
So did he. He was totally confused. He said, "That wasn't me." So I don't know. I think if you allow these things to work through you.
Yeah.
And we won. We beat the Department of Transport, the only people ever. That wood's still there, and everybody got involved. It was so lovely to see the whole community raising up and save the woodland. So from a very purely academical kind of ecological thing, the dragon helped. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So can I ask if there's any questions? Oh, of course, it's Maeve. Do come. Okay, Maeve, you want to unmute?
Oh, hi, Alex. Thanks for that. It was a lovely talk and beautifully presented. You were asking about spirals changing the direction of flow. I believe both Tom Graves and Maria Wheatley have written about that. Oh. And they'd found that some Earth energies changed polarity. They were saying 6 days after new moon and full moon. The research I've done near where I live, which is up in the English Midlands, I found it happening exactly at the time of half moon, which I think Maria Wheatley did say that some people at different latitudes might find that. So, and at one point, when I think it was about 2018, Chris Tong and I were dowsing some energy lines in the Whitby area. He was dowsing them when he went on holiday, and I was doing some remote dowsing, and we started to find that these energy lines were actually changing polarity, and the yin line was becoming yang line, and that at half moon as well. So we couldn't really work that one out. It didn't seem to go on for that long. It was just around those few months, which we ended up stopping dowsing them because we were getting confused. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So yeah, thanks ever so much, Al. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to your point about that, and I wonder if Nigel Twin's still here, because Nigel studied eclipses and he's talked in this group about eclipses as well. I wonder what happens with the spirals during an eclipse. I don't know if Nigel's tried that or.
Right. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Right. I'm on. Right. Okay. Well, I don't know is a straight answer. What I tend to find is that things do reverse. Earth energies do reverse. I have to say I've never tried it with a spiral. The times that I've been out in the field doing eclipses as opposed to in my hall, we've tended to find a certain patch, and you don't get a lot of choice in the midst of a lot of astronomers when you're out there. But we've always found ourselves in somewhere that's been terribly appropriate. And I've had to go at pictograms, I've had to go all sorts of energy lines, but I've never actually landed on a spiral. Maybe the next one will be.
Okay.
One
All
being,
right.
got
Well,
one in Spain a couple of years, well, next year.
okay.
And but we don't have any big spirals in the house. But the next time we have even a partial eclipse, I'll give it a go, and that's all. I'll have to
Brilliant.
come back and tell you about that. But the thing about eclipses is it does tend to turn white into black and black into white and male into female, all that sort of thing in a
Yeah.
quite dramatic way. And I think the eclipse, as I've always said, is the biggest practical laboratory that any of us are ever going to experience in a physical sense, anyway. And it's just, you know, you can douse from home for an eclipse elsewhere, so you don't actually have to go there. But if you want to do, if it's on your bucket list, then I would suggest that you do experience an eclipse of some sort in sort of real time, as it were. It is quite an experience.
Thank you, Nigel, because there's a total lunar eclipse tomorrow, 5:09 a.m. to 8:40.
Yeah, it's 3 until 7 if you want to do all the dowsing. I can't think I would be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but who knows? There we go. Perhaps I will get up and
Can I just say about the spirals at eclipses? A couple of years ago, we did a Tamar Dowser's eclipse dowsing project. Nigel set it off, and myself and Ali took part in it. And I was monitoring the spirals in my house. And yes, they did change polarity around. I can't remember exactly when, but a bit before the eclipse, and change back afterwards. So I think they do.
It's just fascinating. And one thing maybe I might explore is, you know, I don't know if anyone on this call does dowsing for healing, let's say the classic one with a chakra. And for me, if I hold my pendulum and if it goes anti-clockwise, that tends to be a neutralizing action, and then clockwise tends to be a sort of energizing action. And I wonder what happens during an eclipse, but also how the earth energy spirals that could be neutralizing things like composting perhaps, or energizing and healing things, how they might behave over time. And Ali, just a very quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm ever so sorry. I must intervene because the Tamar Dowser's dowsing at the eclipse, was it 2 or 3 years ago? Was it a Saturday or a Sunday, the eclipse? And I remember doing it because I doused, I wasn't too sure what I was dowsing, but it was like a branch spiral around my home. And there I was actually in those vortexes dowsing. Maeve had the good sense to do some sofa dowsing, so she wasn't actually in the spirals. But I was so ill. I was very unwell afterwards. And I remember telling the Earth Energies group about how I wasn't really feeling right since dowsing those spirals. And I don't know if some kind soul did something about it during that Zoom, but I was all right after that. But I'm never going to douse a spiral again during an eclipse.
Well, that is an incredibly wonderful warning word. Yeah. We don't want anyone to experience go through that, but thank you for sharing your experience. It's maybe remote work.
Yeah, remote. You do it remotely. Yeah.
But I just say before we let Chris in, that in my experience, you very rarely get spirals in the singular, as it were. When you look at water and earth energy spirals, there is almost always a double spiral, one going one way, one going the other, male, female, positive, you know, etc. And therefore, at an eclipse, or indeed any other focal point in the cosmos, you will tend to get the one spiral, if you like, reducing its dominance and the other one becoming more dominant. And if you're, as Ali would rightly say, you know, if you're in the middle of that and you've got one thing winding down, the other thing winding up and going in the other direction, my word, that if you're a sensitive person, you would certainly pick that up in spades.
I can imagine. Thank you.
Can we let Chris in now? Sorry, Chris, you've been very patient. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've got a park just next to where I live that has a labyrinth in it, and I walk it fairly frequently, but I make a point of walking it around the equinoxes and solstices, and I find that during the period coming up to an equinox or a solstice, the energy rises, reaches a peak at the actual time of the event, and then diminishes. There's normally throughout the year a spiral at the center of the vortex, but at the time of the solstice or equinox, it seems to grow larger and changes into a torus. Whereas you can't get it into, you can't get within a vortex. With the torus, the actual center of the torus, but around the center of the labyrinth, it's like the hole in a donut, and you can sort of feel the inside of the torus as well as the outside. But that findings fits in with the way that Rory Duff experiences things going on at nodes,
Okay,
where he finds a vortex will turn into a torus. I
right.
don't know whether anybody else has come across that.
Yeah, I think Maeve's nodding. It's like it's you know, if we're body dowsing, so sometimes just rubbing the hands and just feeling the energy. If you were to, like you were saying, just feel for the edge of the vortex and feel that shape around. I think, you know, for those of us who feel grounded and connected and comfortable doing that, could be beneficial.
Can I add in, Alex? Hello, sorry, I can't raise my hand because it doesn't seem to work, probably because I'm co-host. But spirals, they're something that I've been playing with for 25 years. But I would like to say that there's something that if you focused on it, it might be spiraling up one way, but it also has an alternative direction. So it'll go up that way and it'll be coming the other way as
like that.
It will have a dominant aspect going one way, and it's quite easy to focus on it and change its direction.
Okay.
So just through willing it to change.
So it responds to consciousness, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Pleasure.
Dee, do you have your hand up politely?
Oh, hi. I really enjoyed the talk. It's absolutely fantastic. It's really amazing. I just wanted to ask a question on behalf of a friend, actually, although she doesn't know. She's going to Chartres in a couple of months, and she's going to the cathedral. And I just, obviously, it's a really famous labyrinth, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts. I don't know, because I don't know anything about it, really. Or, yeah.
Well, I haven't been to Chartres myself, but I do know it's a 13 circuit labyrinth, and it's incredibly hard to draw. I've been studying how to draw the Chartres labyrinth, so the geometry, just from a practical sort of sense, is really, really complex, but it is possible. And I saw somebody has recently done, I think in Scotland, a Chartres labyrinth on their land out of stone, and they're sort of passing along tips. So that's sort of, there's something I've heard about the Chartres, that it's on a very sacred energy point from before the cathedral was made.
Yeah.
And just from having experienced how things are on 11 circuit labyrinth with a lot of water underneath. It was in a mill, the turf one where I found all those extra spirals, compared to a 3 circuit labyrinth. Each labyrinth has its own kind of almost character or personality, if you like, of how it feels and how it alchemizes in you. So one person who's a friend of the person who was told to build this turf labyrinth, the 11 circuited one, she had some health issues, and it took her 45 minutes to walk inwards just for an 11 circuit. So sometimes the walk into the center can be harder than the walk out. It's almost like you're letting go of what you no longer need. And when you're at the center and the alchemy and the everything nothing yin yang spirals, then you come out a bit more, it feels more life affirming, like the downhill slalom after a long climb. It kind of has that energy. However, the other thing about labyrinths is that it's really good to not have any expectations. And to get into a place of peace and contemplation almost, and serenity. And it's nice to have an intention too. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have a healing intention perhaps, but it's like dowsing. If we're dowsing, if we have an attachment to the outcome, we don't get the actual response we need. Yeah. If that helped, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I just wanted to say something else, actually. I've got a rescue cat, and I'm really sure that he's got dragon energy. I just sort of feel that he kind of chose to come here. I mean, he didn't turn up at the doorstep, I don't mean that really, but he sort of turned down a couple of previous owners, and he was quite, he used to bite. And he doesn't do that anymore now, and nobody wanted him really, so he was biting. And I just feel that he's a dragon, you know, he's very loving, he's not at all, you know, I just think, oh, he's like a dragon to me, really, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true, but to me he is, you know.
If it's your experience and your instinct and intuition is giving you signs or symbols and it feels right, then it's right.
Yeah.
It's again, Carl Jung was asked, you know, I think I was chatting with a friend Mark about this just the other day, if he was asked if he believed in God, and beliefs can be helpful or unhelpful, but they can change as well. But he said, well, I can't answer that question because I know. And it's that knowing sense that's your heart space. And if you feel like you know something, if you feel it in your heart, and it's not your mind thinking, it's different, it's a known felt sense, and trusting that is like our dowsing response, is that felt sense coming through the micro muscles in our fingers and hands.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to douse for it because I'll want him to be a dragon and it will be totally inaccurate, really. Anyway.
Well, ask for signs or affirmations.
Yeah, I must do, really. It's because it's funny, he's been here a year and a half now, and I've sort of grown to accept how he is, if you see what, does that mean, you know, when you get used to his energy, and I don't think it's unusual anymore, so it's just him, really. But at the beginning, I used to think it all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's something in the elemental kingdom. I was talking with a lovely friend Claire earlier today, and the concept of rare or unusual animals that come into your experience or you witness them. It could be a big cat in the UK, you know, one of those scarce ones. It could be that these animals are rare or exceptional, a bit like the big feather I got, like, hello, you know. It could be a form of elemental communication coming through the animal to say, we're here, we're part of the same space, let's work together, let's co-create.
Dee, before you finish, I've never been to France to see that, but I remember my friend saying the actual labyrinth is only open, actually clear, on a Friday. The chairs are there, but you have to go there. But double check. I might be wrong.
But you know, I think you're right. Really, to be honest with you, I've also read that the chairs are down. So I need to.
But not on a Friday.
But I need to find out if she's there on a Friday. I really hope so, because she's a very unwell person, and she's been wanting to go for a long time. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they'll tell you if you looked it up on the internet anyway.
Yeah,
but I just want to go there and find out because you could go to the Labyrinth.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me of that. Actually.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I have several people, Alex. I have Sam.
Sorry if I had, apologies.
There you are.
Yeah, tonight was absolutely fascinating. Just really incredible. I learned so much. And yeah, just from my message, I don't know if everyone's read it or not, but I got called to the Isle of Bute, which is energetically quite interesting. It's on the Michael line as well. And it's also got the Highland fault line, and you know, there's quite a lot going on, and it's on quartz as well. And we're behind Arran, which protects us. And obviously we have the sleeping warrior on Arran. But yeah, when I was on the beach, I was having problems with psychic attacks because I do a lot of like shamanic work and a lot of different things. And I'd moved into the space and I was kind of sensing all the different energies and things. And when I was walking on the beach, there's stones, I speak to everything as well. And there's some stones identified themselves as stones that the dragons wanted to work through so that they could protect the four corners of my room, so that they were setting up like an energetic grid to protect me, because quite often I'll do work like in different dimensions and times, and yeah, I obviously needed some help with that. So I'd done like dragon meditation and things before, and I'd worked with them, but they'd never come to me and offered me this protection before. So I thought it was wonderful, and you know, if anyone else would benefit from that, it's been a great source of comfort and joy for me.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Sam. And just that again, that protection and that support, and putting them in a grid like that, it's a square is such a strong sacred geometry shape, isn't it?
It's also the four elements as well, possibly.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to say that. That's the dragons said to me, you know, like they had very distinct personalities, and they were the four elements. And I was born a fire dragon.
Yes.
So yeah, so I really resonate with the dragons so much, and with the different energies and elements. Yeah, so but with the labyrinths, I feel really, really drawn to them. I'll go to the one in is it St. John's Church in Glastonbury? That there's the labyrinth in the churchyard.
Yes.
There is one in there that's a turf labyrinth. Yeah. But I haven't been to that one, but
when I look at the center of that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It gives me downloads, and so I can connect with different lives or souls waiting to come in, or different dimensions and things. It's really fascinating.
Wonderful. Yeah, I haven't been there to that particular labyrinth, but it yeah, that's fascinating as well. And if you have one that really calls to you, one thing I've taught before in labyrinth sort of sessions is, if you have a finger labyrinth, can connect with the energy of that physical labyrinth. So you can either have an overhead shot of that labyrinth from Google Maps, or draw your own, or download one. I've got some finger labyrinths that I've drawn and painted, and that was in the video link that was sent out. So that shows you how to make your own. And if you energetically connect with that labyrinth, even if you're in the Isle of Bute, you can energetically walk that labyrinth, but with your finger, as if you're there. So to get those same downloads, perhaps, even though there's no right time, space. So
thank you. May I just ask a quick question? Like I feel like I'm being told, like, if I can get funding to make labyrinths in Scotland, I've been away for a long time, and when I've come back, I just feel like it's such a different country. You know, there's so much drug abuse, alcohol abuse. They've got rid of most of the industries. Like, I feel it's like on its knees in a lot of places. And if anyone has any guidance of how I could maybe secure some funding and get some groups involved so that I can work with communities, or maybe someone's done this before, because I would really like people to just be able to go to open spaces and walk the labyrinths and to rebalance themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some quite serendipitous sort of information to share with you, Sam, on that very question. So I got an email, because there's a labyrinth that has been designed and made as a labour of love with community funding in Cornwall, called Kedroya. It's Kerdroya, and it's open 24 hours a day, and it's next to a place called Colliford Lake on Bodmin Moor. And the person who's behind it, the first time I walked this labyrinth, I went on my own. It was quite icy. It was quite sort of, sort of wild, wintry sort of moment. And I came out of the labyrinth whistling and humming For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. And I asked Helen, oh, I don't know what this song's about. And she said, I know who it's about. And it's about a guy called Will Coleman. And so if you make a note of his name, he's the creative sort of inspiration and project sort of guide. He's done a lot of work. He's a musician, performer, teacher, and designer of the Metal Man, which was a 60-foot tall metal man that toured Cornwall a few years ago. So he knows how to get local companies, and the way he's done it, there's videos online for how it's been done. The way he's done it as a collaboration with funding nationally, for those kinds of things, grant writing. Because he comes from that theatre background, theatrical productions often need that extra community sort of grant support. So he'd be a good person to reach out to. And it's a lovely project, and it's Cornish stone wall. So it's using, so I was going to say, what's the local building sort of language where you're thinking of, where would you maybe douse or identify a potential location? And it's a team effort. And Patrick McManaway talks about when he builds stone circles, it's a community affair. People, and it's funny when you put the intention out, how things fall into place magically. People would magically say, oh, I've got all of these dolmens for you, or it's like, here you go, they're free, So there's lots of different ways to have this happen. But that you asked that question, and I got that email in my inbox just yesterday. Again, things slipping into place, right?
That's crazy. Thank you so much for your time and everything. I appreciate so much. Thanks.
Sam, before you go, I've got I'm in Scotland, Sam, and happy to help. Marjorie. Is it Marjorie? In the chat.
Thank you.
So if you have a little look at that. And Rob said he's pulled 3 cards from the Star Dragon Oracle deck, and they all look a bit similar to your coffee, Alex. Thank you, Rob. I've got a few people waiting. So Heather, sorry for interrupting you earlier. Thank you so much for waiting.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I noticed on one of your screen pictures where you shared you were walking into the labyrinth, you parked your car and you went left, and then you were guided around and saw the sunset. The inner circle, I counted 16 stones again.
Oh, thank you for that observation, Heather. Wow, in the sanctuary of all places.
Yeah, and with biogeometry, 16 of anything placed in a circle can heal, right? And so again, there's that beautiful magic of 16. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, that's a new term I've never heard before, Heather. Biogeometry. Wow.
Yeah, Dr. Gilbert is out of the States. There's a man in Vancouver. Carrie, I can't remember his last name right now, who came to the BC Dowsers conference. And so I just know a little bit, but the resonating 16 in a circle, it just.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really
And
great.
thank you. And then I wanted to ask you a question. With building a labyrinth, have you ever had any insight into building one around or within an earth sky chimney?
So an earth sky chimney.
Dawn talks about them, doesn't she, Heather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not
I know
heard
what
of
you're
this
talking about.
term. I've not heard of this term. Please, can you help me understand what it is?
So it's a resonating energy point where the sky energy and the earth energy breathes and shares. So with my dowsing rods on, and like when the earth is breathing down, sorry, when the sky is breathing down, the dowsing rods will rotate in one direction. And then when it's the earth's turn, it goes the other way. And it's these portals of where the earth and sky breathe together. And then they have these beautiful rays that surround them. And it naturally looks like a flower or like a radiant sun. And you can count how many rays are attached to the chimney. And I was just wondering if you had any experience with that. And well, I'll douse and see if it's appropriate to create a labyrinth coming to one. I just was wondering if you had any.
May I ask, Heather,
Never heard of that. Thank you. But
are you finding that as a spiral or a column?
More of a column. That's how I perceive it. Yeah, but within that column would be a natural spiral.
So it's spiraling, but it's going
up and down.
Up. Yeah, I've found some of those. Yeah.
Supposedly they're very prevalent. About every 10 feet you can find one. Dawn has shared, like they're all over the place. And I have one in my front garden, and I was just wondering how to honor it. And I thought maybe building a labyrinth to it might be nice. I'll douse and ask.
I'd love to hear, Heather, how that goes, if that's okay. I'm in touch with somebody, I don't know if you know Evelyn Mulders, because I work with Sound Essences. She's in BC, and she's talked to the dowsing community in your area, so I'm in touch with her. But yeah, if you have any news, I'd love to hear how that goes, if that's okay.
I'll try to find her and I'll reach out to you. That would be great. Thank you.
Or maybe Melanie can put us in touch anyway. Yeah, with each other. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I've got a whole list of people here. I've got we've got Brenda. Now, if I can find Brenda's message. Now, Heather will know Brenda. Where have you got Brenda? I'll have to. Oh, there we are. A second. No, I've lost her again. Sorry about this. I'll let Claire in next till I find Brenda. Claire, you know Claire very well. Where are you, sweetie?
I think I've reached my IT capacity for today. I couldn't even figure out how to do that. Sorry.
Hi, sweetie. Hi, darling.
Hello. I couldn't raise my hand for some reason, so you know I'm in Dragon Country, Alex. You've visited, you've stayed here, you've had the connections with them. It's interesting how many are coming forward to me now in times of what I call meditation, which is often just walking in nature or just being in the Celtic rainforest here, where I know Paul's had dragon experiences here with me. But do you sort of assimilate a colour of a dragon with a particular activity, or for protection, for example, or what do you see about different colours of dragons and what their purpose is, if you like?
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, lovely question. And I've felt that if I've had a white dragon, kind of, to me, in my mind's eye, white color, a bit like Never Ending Story color dragon, if that's come into my awareness, it felt more like air element, and it's kind of like it feels very up there in the air, very sort of almost sort of translucent, and I've had that channel through me as a very powerful sort of healing portals, and sort of that light language coming through me when I'm working with that kind of elemental air energy aspect dragon. The green dragon, a bit like the spring dragon for the Chinese New Year, that's felt very foresty, earthy, very primordial, and sort of moving like those dragon scales in that video bit. It just feels, I haven't had dialogue with that kind of dragon, but I felt the immense power and that universal strength. It's just been stunning. Rainbow coloured dragons when I was travelling in my motorhome for the first time, supporting me. Felt very sort of cheering and happy and collaborative. So those are the aspects that I've been noting in terms of colour and elemental and sort of the kind of vibes and messaging. But I feel, honestly, I feel like I'm just getting going with this. And even though it's been a sort of sign, it's only been since 2024 in June that they came through. So I feel like I'm scratching the surface, literally, of this amazing, awe-inspiring power. So as well, I can feel it physically. It's more about a physical connection with me rather than the chatter, if that helps. What colours have you had? And
well, it's interesting because I suppose you could almost argue, if you've done any crystal work in the past, that some of them have got the sort of linkages with, like you describe, almost clear quartz as a channel with the white, you know, protective sort of feminine energy with the pink sort of heart-centered, like covering you in love. You know, the green being the healing. But I also think that they have a purpose, a bit like us Dowsers, really. Some are land protectors and healers. Some are for more materials, like house healers, like the Melanies of this world, maybe. And, you know, so I think they're appearing to me as colour and purpose at the moment, and I'm just trying to get my head around that. And the gold is very much about the mediumship. The golden dragon's eye for me is very much linked to where there's like a mediumship connection coming through. And I know that I share that with a colleague, Water Dowser, who she and I both see these gold dragon's eyes sometimes when we're sort of connected at distance. It's really strange. So yeah, again, like you, just learning, and very similar timeline, interestingly.
yeah.
So, yeah.
It's marked with a feather for me. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got quite a few people queuing up. I'll bring Mark in because he had several interesting things to say. Are you there, Mark? Is he still with us? He was saying that 16 elements are in a medicine wheel, which is very healing. I don't know if he can connect or not. And he was also saying that he connects with a local labyrinth where he is. I'm just trying to find where his message was.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know
There
which
you are.
mark you meant.
Oh, sorry, sweetie. There you are. There you are. I was looking for your picture.
There's another mark here. I wasn't sure it was me or not.
I beg your pardon.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for that. Brilliant. Really good to know that. Thank you.
You were going to mention about your own near you as well, Mark. You said there was a labyrinth.
Oh yes, I've connected to the Earth Dragon there at one of my local stone circle, and that's above a Triskelion. So, but the whole site's full of Triskelions, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, the Merry Maidens. You may have heard of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Mark looks after it. He's a very, very interesting person. He's fascinating.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, okay. I'd love to. Yeah, it's not too far from me, I guess. Just
no. If you're up by Foyne, it's quite a nice day's jaunt.
Brilliant. Yeah, I haven't been there for many moons, but and it's a Triskelion. You were saying there's sort of
the whole site is full of them.
Wow.
There's the original stone circle, and there's 2 redundant stone circles which make up a trilliskin, and there's 3 spirals in each circle, which are trilliskins. And ever since I've been working with it, there's been where I work, which is the center of the triskelion, of the 3 three circles. It's the center, there's the spiritual center, the place of the ancestors. That's where I connected to the dragon, Earth Dragon, and he's called Quetzalcoatl.
Wow.
That's curious.
Amazing.
Alex, Mark had asked me to help the remote Dowser, which I've not had time to do. So maybe we can do that together.
Yeah.
Would you mind that, Mark?
No, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I've been crazy busy, but if we do it together, we might get through it. You've sent me all the details. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, happy to do that, Melanie.
Thank you, Mark. I found Brenda, and Brenda's in. She can't actually speak because she's in a library. Bless her. I usually say thank you during my inward journeys to the St. Paul's, Vancouver, Labyrinth, and then the Q&A or advice session arrives on the way out. So she's walking out of the labyrinth. Or sometimes in the thanks stage, I always carry a small notebook and non-clicking pen. I step out of the other's way and jotting down the information there. So take a notebook.
Cool.
Thank you, Brenda. She's
Thanks,
amazing, Brenda. Okay, now I have several other people. Sorry. Oh yeah, and Sam, a message for you very quickly. Several people have said about Graham Gardner. I should know this. Graham makes labyrinths in Scotland. Graham Gardner, Western Geomancy. So if you're still listening.
Oops.
Huh?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You'll find his website and loads about his website, his labyrinth building. And I know Paul Serrett and Paul Thornton have both been very patient. So let's have Paul first because Paul Thornton wants to share something. Paul, are you there in your little van?
Which Paul?
Paul.
Which Paul?
Oh, no, you're both so good looking. It's hard to tell. Right.
Rubbish. Do you want Mr. Cow Whisperer or me?
No, you go first, then Paul can show what he wants to show. Mr. Cow Whisperer.
Okay, I won't put up mine. Well, a few things really. Chartres, you mentioned. Those of you who live near Gloucester, every so often they bring out the carpet, which is the Chartres Labyrinth, and they put that down on the centre of Gloucester Cathedral. So do try and go and see it. It's fascinating. It's an exact 100% reproduction. But if you walk it, you do feel the same energies, and Gloucester is a very powerful place in its own right anyway. So that's quite an interesting experience. I'm glad someone mentioned fingers because there's a fingerboard. So go and look at the woodworking people at fairs and fetes because this I use quite regularly and run your finger around.
I've got one too, Paul.
Yeah, brilliant things to have. Someone mentioned big cats. I know a lot of you are Dowsers and therefore we work on the edge of skepticism, but they are around. I've seen 3 in this country or in Britain. So just keep your eyes on the hedgerows. They're absolutely fascinating. Maybe one day we'll do a separate talk on cats because I've been involved with them now since 2012 when I found one. I'm really pleased, Alex, you mentioned a sanctuary as a labyrinth because I find it that. And your dowsing route's the same route that I pick up as well, which is really lovely to get the synergies and the synchronicity of the same thing as well. So I take people there quite regularly and take them around the labyrinth. Sometimes people pick up different labyrinths as well. So I think there's been many different versions of it there. We talked about chimneys. I've come across them quite a lot of times. It's interesting someone mentioned 16 because chimneys invariably have 8 or 16 tendrils coming out. They're only found on land. They're not found over water. And I find them as an energy column. And they're usually about 20, 30 feet off the ground. You walk underneath them, so they're above you. But yeah, they're everywhere. But I've never really understood what they're about. Yes, I hear what you say about breathing. I find columns on the ground going up for breathing more than anything. When Earth, you send stuff down to Earth to be transmuted, this is where I find them. Earth is throwing it back up again. And the last bit, someone talked about Quetzalcoatl. I don't know if you're aware, but that's one of the Mayan animals as well for a lot of the spiritual connections that they do. If you go to Chichen Itza and you clap at the bottom of the calendar pyramid, as they nickname it, you'll hear the noise of Quetzalcoatl because it echoes at the top, which is quite fascinating. If you look at it, it does look a little bit like a dragon. So yeah, but otherwise, Alex, absolutely brilliant. Probably the best slides from a graphics point of view we've ever had. I don't know how we're going to follow that because they're superb. But yeah, well done, brilliant.
Thank you.